First of all, Mr. Tom Morello, what an honor to have you with us on Radioacktiva Colombia. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to speak to you and all of the Colombian fans.
Where are you right now?
I'm at home in my studio in Los Angeles.
Okay. About the upcoming record, I know we have little time, so let's take the best of it. The Atlas Underground Fire. Tell us about this new album. We already listened, of course, a few years ago, the first Atlas Underground, but this one seems so far from the information we have like a different one with a different approach.
The thing that the Atlas Underground project has in common is that it's built on collaborations, and this record has many of them. I'll tell you, but my collaborators on this record, they include Bruce Springsteen and Eddie Vedder, Bring Me the Horizon, Fantagram, Chris Stapleton, Grandson, Mike Posner, Damian Marley, Prototype, Femme, Refused, and Sama Abdul Hadi. So this was a record that was born during lockdown. And it was a time where I thought that I wasn't going to be able to play any shows, wasn't going to be able to make any music. I have a studio at my home, but I don't know how to work it. I'm not an engineer. I normally have an engineer who does that. And so it felt like there's going to be no music for the foreseeable future. Fortunately, inspiration came from a very unusual place, which is Kanye West. Kanye West, I read an interview where he was bragging about recording the vocals for a couple of his hit records onto the voice memo of his phone. And I thought, well, maybe I can just record guitar riffs into my phone. Let's try that. And I did. And they sounded effing great. And I began sending those riffs out to different producers and engineers around the world, and the track started coming back. And then I was thinking, oh, who do I want to collaborate with on this one? And all of a sudden, these days, at the beginning days of the pandemic, where it felt there's a lot of anxiety and fear and hopelessness, I started creating this Atlas Underground community that felt like a real lifeline. And 95% of the guitars on this record were recorded into my phone.
Cool. And having, of course, Bruce Springsteen and Eddie Vedder on the first single playing Highway to Hell.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Sure. So Bruce and Eddie and I have a history together with that song. I was playing in the E Street Band for about 6 years, and we were in Perth, Australia, the home of Bon Scott, the singer of AC/DC, and I paid my respects to Bon's grave that evening and went back to the hotel and asked Bruce, I said, do you think there's a way that AC/DC and the E Street Band might overlap in any way? And he was like, maybe. Anyway, so the next few days we started rehearsing Highway to Hell at Soundcheck, and we were playing a big football stadium in Melbourne, about 80,000 people, and Eddie Vedder happened to be in town. He was there on a solo tour, and he was at the show, and I had an idea. I said, Bruce, we're in the country where AC/DC is king. We've been rehearsing the song Highway to Hell, which is like the unofficial national anthem of Australia. Eddie Vedder is here. What if we open the show with Highway to Hell with Eddie Vedder? And he was like, that sounds like a pretty good idea. So we did that, and the place went absolutely bananas. I mean, like, it came apart at the seams. And when I was finishing this record, I reflected back on that moment, and that how one of the greatest rock and roll songs of all time, sung by two of the greatest rock and roll singers of all time, Bruce Springsteen and Eddie Vedder, was such a magical moment. I was like, is it possible that I can get those guys to record that song with me now? And fortunately, they were both into it.
You have such a distinctive style when it comes to guitar playing. And in the first Atlas Underground, we had EDM and lots of different styles.
Yeah.
And for the second one, opening with Highway to Hell, it kind of makes me think, like, what's going to be the approach musically on this Atlas Underground Fire?
Sure. So I let this record, in order for music to be compelling, I think it needs to be authentic. And the key thing in this is that the electric guitar leads the way. You know, it is a solo album in that regard, and that the overall vision of it and the guitar playing leads the way on every song. However, it's in some ways a band album in that each of the songs has collaborators, and each of the songs has a unique chemistry. You know, from Chris Stapleton, who's huge in the country world, to Sama Abdul Hadi, who's a great young Palestinian DJ. You know, I let the songs sort of take their own path. and with the cohesion coming from my electric guitar, my voice on the electric guitar. So the things that the records have in common is it's diverse collaborators, all with the same vision of creating, trying to create some very, compelling art during a very difficult time.
But I've always considered your sound on the guitar very authentic, very different. Is it hard to come up on a record and try to be authentic? The first Atlas Underground record was very different from what we've heard you play with Audioslave, Prophets of Rage, of course, Against the Machine. But coming for this record, trying to stop sounding like Tom Morello. How do you do that? Because
I never
different.
want to stop sounding like Tom Morello. What I do have faith in the instrument though, and a real belief that the electric guitar has a bright future. I think it's the greatest instrument that mankind has ever created, as far as like be able to create power and nuance and expression and diversity in soundscapes. Everything from a delicate flamenco to a R2D2 crazy noises to Black Sabbath riff. The guitar has it all. So what my goal on each and every record is to push myself. I want there to be for me, it's very important that there are big riffs. Like I've never stopped coming up with riffs that entertain me, So I want that to be a part of the record, like kick-ass riffs. But I also want my guitar playing, as a musician, I'm constantly searching. I don't want to play the same guitar solo I did on Killing in the Name, But I've got some guitar solos on this record that are really like unlike anything that I've ever played before. There are some that are more sort of melodic and emotional, some that are, you will never believe that it's an electric guitar making the sound. So, given those couple of hours I came up here every day to sort of explore, I came up with a lot of good new stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's those are some of the elements that make the sound of Tom Morello, that from what I'm point of view and from what we've heard you play before. I wanted to ask you something. I fear it might be a stupid question, but I'm just gonna go with it. Do you have a favorite love song? I wanted to ask you this because we know your sound, we know your message, of course, and what you've been involved musically through your whole life. But I was wondering about that.
Sure. I mean, I'll just off the top of my head, because there may be more, but I would say there's a really great Bruce Springsteen song called "If I Should Fall Behind," and it's basically, in the course of life, if one partner should fall behind, I'll wait for you. You know what I mean? And it's a pretty beautiful song.
Has somehow being in lockdown and everything that has happened around the world, having the world for the first time like ever, a common element sort of deciding how we should behave or what we should do or not with COVID, change or alter somehow your relationship with music?
Well, I mean, definitely. This is the longest that I've ever gone without playing a show, which has been a part of my life. It's like the thing that since I was 17 years old, I've never not played shows. So the way that it's changed it's like I've never looked at music before, at least consciously, as like a mental health tool. And that's what it's been very much during this time. Is like it's expressive, it's rocking, it's powerful, it's fun to create with other musicians, but it's also an oasis of sanity, during a time where things make sense and where things can be sort of creative and fun in a time where there's a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah, it's funny. I've had the chance of asking that to several musicians now that we have the possibility of seeing each other with these interviews, and it's usually the same feeling. How we, in many ways, even though we don't make music, but we do listen to it a lot. We need it. We need to get back on stage and to see you guys perform and all that. Yeah. So it's fascinating. It doesn't matter where you are, what music means.
Of course, yeah, I agree.
Morello, just one last thing. Sure. How are you planning to tour, or will you tour this record somehow?
Yeah, there's no plans to tour this record. I mean, given the number of collaborators and the situation in the world, there's no plans to tour this record now. But I'm always working on new music. So we'll see, what happens.
Yeah, you definitely should come to Colombia someday.
I'd love to. I've never been to Colombia. I've never performed a show in Colombia, and it's long past due. And I'd like to thank the very patient Colombian fans over the course of decades, and I hope to be able to play there and really rock it out.
Yeah, interestingly enough, all of the bands you've played have had several followers here in Colombia.
Sure.
Well, once again, thank you very much, and thank you very much for the music, man. It's meant a lot for me to my life.
You got it. I really appreciate that, sir. Thanks very much.
Bye-bye.
Hopefully we'll see you sometime. Okay, bye-bye. Hello, this is Tom Morello, and you're listening to Radioacktiva, the rock planet.